aspirant of Edo State's 2024 upcoming election in Edo State, and there is no other person than His Excellency Ambassador Dr. Martin. Sir, you're welcome to this program.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
All right, sir. I would like you to give us a little breakdown about your profile.
My name is Ambassador Martin Ihoeghian Uhomoibhi. I hail from Ewato, which I love to call globally the center of the universe. I attended St. Anthony's Primary School in Ewato, Esan Southeast Local Government. And from there went to secondary school in Benin City, St. Paul's Minor Seminary. And from there proceeded to the University of Ibadan, where I graduated Bachelor of Arts degree in History, second upper class, 1976. Did my youth service in Sokoto State, now Zamfara, Kebbi, and Sokoto. Was privileged to teach at the Federal Government College, at the Government Secondary School in Koko, and had the privilege of teaching 2 governors that emerged in that state from 1999 to 2014. I returned from my youth service and was given the position of graduate assistant at the University of Ibadan, 1977 to 1978, with a scholarship to do my postgraduate studies, did my master's 78, proceeded to Oxford University in 1979, came back with a DPhil from Oxford in modern history and international relations in 1982, and returned to Ibadan to continue my teaching career. In 1984, I defected from academia to the field, went to the Foreign Service of Nigeria. I was in the Foreign Service from 1984 to 2014, 30 years. During the 3 decades, I represented my country in different parts of the world, including as alternate representative of Nigeria to the Security Council 1994 to 1995, including as Consul General of Nigeria to Atlanta 1999 to 2000, including as Deputy Head of Mission and Permanent Representative to the Organization of African Unity in Addis Ababa from 2000 to 2003. Returned to the ministry in 2003 and was Director in the Office of the Permanent Secretary until 2007, when I was appointed Ambassador and Permanent Representative of Nigeria to the United Nations in Geneva and Ambassador to Switzerland. While I was in Switzerland representing Nigeria as Permanent Representative of Nigeria to the United Nations, I was unprecedentedly in UN history elected the first African to be President of the United Nations Human Rights Council and also President of the World Intellectual Property Organization. I held those 2 global positions simultaneously, the first time it would happen in UN history. I came back from there in 2010, and I was appointed Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I held that position as Permanent Secretary for 5 years until my retirement in November 2014. Upon my retirement, I wanted to set up an institute where I would have to document African history, because Africans don't tell their stories. They leave their stories for others to tell. And when you leave your stories for others to tell, what do they do to it? They bastardize your stories. So this institute where we're having the privilege of having the institute was set up as the Pan-African Institute for Global Affairs and Strategy, essentially dedicated to documenting, telling the Nigerian story and the African story. But in 2015, I was invited to the United Nations, and in 2016, I was appointed under Secretary General of the United Nations, which is the highest career position in the UN system professionally. The higher any position higher than that is that of the Secretary General that is elected and Deputy Secretary General. But I was appointed under Secretary General of the United Nations. There was no interview, there was no vacancy declared. And that was done with the unanimity of the 5 permanent members of the Security Council, because each of them had a veto, and if any of them disagreed, Russia, China, US, UK, and France, then you wouldn't get it. But I was on my own cognizance, without interview, without any dialogue, appointed to that UN position, the highest position in the UN service. I did that until 2017 when I eventually retired. And my assignment in that capacity was to head the largest peacekeeping mission in the world at that time, UNAMID operations in Darfur, Sudan, to help to reconcile Sudan, which was in conflict at that time. So I'm telling this story just to tell you the array of experience that I have been able to acquire over the years, and that it's such a privilege to be aspiring to be governor of Edo State. That is the least I can do for my country. And the reason for that actually is because I want to give back to my country. It is, compared to the positions that I've had, being governor of Edo State is actually like stepping down a little bit. But it is a sacrifice that I would like to make in honor of my people, just to prove a point that governance is not rocket science. Our critical problem in Nigeria, and perhaps also in Africa, is leadership. We don't manage to put our best foot forward. And when you don't put your best foot forward, and you're expecting a fantastic result, then something must be wrong with you. Because nemo dat non quam habet, you cannot give what you do not have. So I'm hoping by putting myself forward that Edo people this time would look at their own history. Edo was a model to the world in the 14th, 15th century. If you look at the documents that were written, look at, for example, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, written by Walter Rodney. You will see excerpts in that book about how amazed Europeans were when they visited Benin in the 15th century under Obayiwari I. Edo was a role model. And I may also tell you, just at the time of the Papal Bull of Demarcation was drawn up in the 14th century, early 15th century, when the Pope divided the world into two, to Spain and to Portugal. Two envoys were accredited from the kings of Spain and Portugal to the court of the Oba of Benin. What attracted that? So where did we lose it as a nation and as a people? I believe with the knowledge of history that I have and with the great experience that I have, globally and internationally, and also even nationally, Edo can regain that lost glory and become the role model for other states to emulate. That is really the passion that I have for my country and for my state.
All right, so you said good light has come to Edo State, and we want to also know from you what are your points of agenda to the people of Edo State?
If Edo decides to elect me as their governor, it will be the beginning, the dawn of a new era. In the UK, if you don't go to Oxford or Cambridge, you don't stay in 10 Downing Street. And they go there for their first degree. This proud son of Edo went to Oxford University and got his doctorate, the highest degree possible on earth, at the age of 27. In terms of experience, what I want to achieve in Edo is to modernize African prosperity, to modernize Edo, to bring the African culture, African ideas of development to bear on our history. And it is possible, it is doable. Edo State is blessed in terms of natural and human resources. Well, let us modernize our agriculture that Edo is proudly endowed with. And that will help to transform Edo State. Our youth will be employed. You don't need to go and borrow money. With the global network connection that I have with 193 countries that make up the United Nations, in those capacities and positions that I held, I dare to tell you that that is called global network connections. Nigeria, as you can see, we are broke. Yesterday, the Naira was $1 to 1,250. Today, it is $1 to 1,300. Where are we headed as a nation? But if you have someone with integrity and character, and that's what defines your value. If I take people to outside of this country to go and look for foreign direct investment, and I finish talking to them and they Google my name and look for my CV, what will they see? They will see a man who is governor of Edo State, who has a DPhil, a BA from Ibadan, a DPhil from Oxford, who has who was the first African to be elected president of the United Nations Human Rights Council, who was also president of the World Intellectual Organization, WIPO, who was also Under-Secretary General of the United Nations, who was permanent secretary of his country's foreign ministry for 5 years, who was his country's ambassador to the United Nations, who was his country's ambassador to Switzerland. That is the pedigree they will see, and that defines your value and your worth. And that is called money. That is called value. It is not how many thousands of dollars you have in your account. It's the integrity of your persona that defines you and the quality of interest that you attract globally. And all of this will bring to bear. And of course, not to talk about my experience in globe. Look at the conflict and the insecurity in my state and in this country. How? People can't go to farm. I cannot travel without my own security. That is not conducive. So we can bring out, I won't tell you the plans that I have for all that. That is strictly confidential. But I will address the security challenge that faces this country in a way that no one else can. And given my own experience in conflict management and conflict resolution, in those global positions that I have, I will bring them to bear in breeding harmony and peace among all the groups in our dear state and make that state a better state. So it's not going to be, look at our youths. The greatest number of migrants going irregularly through the desert to Italy, majority of them come from Edo State, my state, unfortunately. That must stop. That has to stop. But that cannot stop just by you pontificating. You have to put something on the ground to attract the youths. And our youths have talents that can be deployed to develop Edo State and our country, and not to be wasted on hazardous trip through Agadez, being sold as slaves in Libya, drowning in the Mediterranean, and becoming slaves, worse than slaves in Italy. That will not happen under my tenure. So these are things that really hurt me personally, and I think that the narrative needs to change. And if we continue to recycle what we have been doing in the past, because people can buy you, there are 3 categories of leaders I must tell you about. 3 categories of leaderships that you have. Aristotle spoke about. There are the philosopher king leaders, people who care about the welfare of their people, who have ideas and they want to transform society. There are those who use force, who use coercive means, that's the 2nd category, who bangle their way through, using touts and talks. There are also those who are mercantilists, traders. They have $10 billion and they invest it, 10 billion naira in our case, and they buy votes. They pay you and you become their slaves, and in the next 8 years, they take charge of your treasury. And you dare not ask them what they do with their money because they are in charge. I belong to the 1st category, and I will introduce humanity. I will seek consultation among our people. Our needs will be, no budget will be done without consulting with the local governments, with the traditional rulers. Look at what we have done to traditionalism in our society. Look at how they are treated in England, who colonized Nigeria. They are respected, but in our country, traditional rulers, do they have a space? No, and yet, without them, this country will not exist. I dare to tell you that. They are the ones binding all of us together, and in Edo in particular, with the proud history that we have. So these are some of the ideas that I have in my head. We can talk about them for a long, long time to come.
All right, so from some of the profiles was saying a lot of visitations to the schools and the communities and all of the talking related with the people, and it seems you're a grassroots man. And I want to know from you, sir, those in the diaspora that also have interest in this forthcoming election in the 2 states. So I would like you to, do you have any word of encouragement? Because most of them will want to come back to cast their votes. So do you think is needful for them over there, or do you also think they can also come back to the country and then, just like you're doing, implementing what you've got from the outer world to Nigeria and to Edo states in particular? Do you really think this can take place in this forthcoming election in Edo state?
Well, if the diaspora, no society develops without its diaspora. India is what it is today because of the critical role that the diasporans played. In India, the knowledge they bring in, the foreigner, look at some of the greatest contributors to our GDP in Nigeria are diaspora. They are breaking records at home, but because we have not made conditions suitable for them here, they are not able to prosper here. Nigerians are the best in the world, I dare to say. But the enabling environment is not here sufficiently to encourage them. So I promise that we shall use the diaspora, we shall consult them, we shall make the greatest use of them to revamp, revitalize, and resuscitate Edo State. And I want Edo State to become the role model of our country. Historically, it is destined to be, and it should play out. And the diaspora has a critical role to play in that respect. Of course, my 30 years in the Foreign Service put me in a position to be able to connect with diaspora all over the world, and I know what roles they play and what roles they can play in galvanizing development in Edo State, and that we will ensure during my tenure.
All right, so I want you to talk to Nigerians at large what it takes to run for this great position, because it's a very taxing position you're going for. I want you to have a word to Nigerians and then tell them to cast their vote. Do you also think that this coming election is going to be a very transparent election in the Edo states? And also, what are your words of encouragement to Edo?
My people of Edo, the time has come. We cannot continue to tell the same story and recycle the same narrative. It must stop. 63 years of our independence, and how many years Midwest was created, and Edo State has emerged from that entity. Edo must return as the role model for this country. Edo must develop. Edo must grow. Edo must reactivate its engine of development. It is possible. It is doable. It will happen. Light has come. You must make the right choice. Don't sell your power. Don't sell your vote for money. People, when they buy you, you become their slave. And that is unacceptable for a son and a daughter of Edo who knows his history. Vote for integrity. Vote for character. Vote for knowledge. Vote for experience. Vote for competence. This man talking here has that. Google my name and see my pedigree. It is not bought. You don't buy competence. You grow it and you achieve it. Do that, and the history of Edo will be resuscitated. And the light has come. By that I mean that the time has come for the decision to be taken to change the narrative in Edo State's history. I represent that light, proudly represent that light. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for having your time spent with us. We're really grateful for this great opportunity to have you in the studio talking to us about forthcoming election in Edo State. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. We really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure, and I thank you for coming. Look forward to another opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.